下一个章节，这是我是台中怀疑论者社会的会长。Okay, I'm the founder of Taichung Skeptics in the Pub, and today we're going to be talking about more skeptical, more humanistic, maybe you could say more skepticism, more humanism. It's not going to be a talk about being more skeptical than now, or ask me how few things I believe in, and I'll tell you how many. I believe in nothing. No, it's nothing like that. It's going to be about how these two things can work together, how being more skeptical can make us more humanistic. And I must apologize. I don't own Office, Microsoft Office. I use LibreOffice, and the two don't like each other, so there might be some issues along the way. Bear with me. All right. So, this book is a book called Dune. Has anyone read it? Okay, or seen the movie or the TV miniseries? Okay, it's really good. I really suggest you check it out. If you like Game of Thrones, it's kind of like Game of Thrones in space. Okay. In this book, there's a line. It's the litany against fear, which is spoken by a religious order in the book. And the quote is, "Fear is the mind killer." Fear is the mind killer. In other words, or at least how I read that, is that when you're afraid, when you are scared of something, you are less likely to engage in thoughtful reflection. You're less likely to stop and think about what you're doing. You're more likely to just react to what scares you, right? And I see this everywhere. I see this all around, and it really bothers me. It bothers me not because there aren't legitimate things for people to be afraid of, there really are, but it bothers me that people are creating boogeymen for themselves. They're putting monsters under their own beds. Things that, with a little education, they wouldn't have to waste time being afraid of. Things like this, things like GMOs, radiation, vaccination, and tiny bottles, and chemicals. Right. I'm going to talk about these a little bit later. Yeah, these are the kind of things that when someone says, "I'm afraid of these," I'm really concerned that they're not engaging with the topics. They're not thinking about them. They're not being skeptical. It's this cycle of fear. There's my extra space. Thank you. Open office. All right. So because people are afraid, they have fear, they don't think, and because they don't think, they continue to be afraid, and because they're afraid, they continue to not think. So I want to stop this cycle. I think skepticism is one way we can stop that cycle. Right? If we can get people to be skeptical, we can stop them from being afraid, we can get them to start thinking. So, what is skepticism? Let's start with a topic that skeptics might deal with. This is a website. It's from here in Taiwan. Yeah, UFO sightings daily. Again, sorry, open office. When I tried to save this picture onto my computer, fair use, these were some of the tags: flying saucer, UFOs, sightings. It keeps going. Rainbows, President Obama, Angelina Jolie, Justin Bieber. Yeah, why would someone post that? Why would they tag all their photos with that? I have my ideas. But let's see. Let's look at this guy. Let's see if what he is doing is skepticism. So here he is, our intrepid investigator, Scott Warren. He has a school here in New Taipei City. He has discovered an invisible piece of paper. No, not really. But he has discovered something. Does anyone see it? Really? Come on, guys. It's writing in this. Oh, there's a little dot. You know, actually, I'm going to show you something later, and you know, yeah. Actually, this rock, it's a little hard to see. It's a face. Yeah, it's a face. Okay, and not just a naturally forming face. Not like, you know, the queen's head up in IHEYO, the queen's head. How do you say that? Nuwang. Right? No, he's saying that this face here was created by aliens. It was the aliens who made this face. Okay, I mean, this is maybe being a little bit unfair to him. This is by Kunding. And you can see the face a little bit better here. 2 eyes, a nose, and a mouth. Yeah. Okay, so according to him, according to Scott, he thinks that this was made by some kind of alien intelligence. And he also thinks that because this face is here, it's marking some kind of alien base underground. Alright? So he's doing research, he's collecting his evidence. I did a little bit of my own research, okay? Just out and about. Where I park my scooter, alien face. Riding on the bus, sad face. Okay? These alien bases, you gotta watch out for them. They're everywhere. One more by Kunding. Is it aliens or is it Richard Nixon? That's sometimes, it's called Sail Rock, but it also just looks a little bit like Nixon 总统的鼻子。
Also, his face is half submerged.
It's half submerged, yeah. Okay, so yes, like you were saying, he finds dots. Actually, what he said is he's found a statue down here. A religious statue, specifically. It's an altar that people, that the aliens, the intelligent aliens, go to worship at. Okay? Again, that's as specific as he is being. He's telling you what it is and how the aliens interact with it. This dot is a ship, a flying saucer, of course. Okay, someone else? He didn't discover this, he reported on this, but this rock, he says it looks like a skull. And the question is, guys, is it an alien or is it a Bigfoot? All right? On Mars. How about this? Anyone recognize this stately figure? Looks like somebody's butt.
What's wrong?
Would you maybe even say he looks presidential? This is Obama. Well, okay, you see his nose, his eyes, his mouth. It's Obama 总统, yeah. He's married and with kids, so he is sent. You can go on his website and he takes the time to add a color to all these photos to make them a bit more clear. Recently discovered, Donald Trump here on Mars. Right, Donald Trump. And this is the best one. An alien in a top hat and a cape, giving the finger to the NASA rover. Right, an alien in a top hat, giving the finger to the NASA rover. Again, this is his language. I'm not putting anything in his mouth. This is how he describes these things, and this is how he talks about them. He presents it in that same tone. He says, this is what it is. Okay? Here's his process. He'll get on websites with publicly available photos like Google Earth and look for things that look like other things. Okay? An island that looks like a heart. So nice. Okay, ooh, yeah, someone painted the KFC guy in the middle of the desert so we could see it from space. Great job, okay. Okay, here's a church that looks like something else. 好像。I hear things are on the rise around there. Ooh. Sorry, easy one. All right, or he goes to NASA. NASA is a publicly funded organization, so they have to print their data, print the photos that they take for the public. So he's building his research off of what has already been done by other people. Do you recognize this photo? See anyone? Oh, very good. Good eyes. Yeah, right here, guys. Trump. Okay. Yeah, see it's flopping in the wind there. Yeah. Yeah. You know, so again, he's building off other people's information. He's using scientifically accrued data, at least, and using it to build his case. Although he missed, right here, it looks like BMO from Superhero 6, or Big Hero 6. You see BMO. 大英雄团主义, yeah. BMO. I can do it too, I'm a researcher, I'm a science researcher. Here's the question though. Is it skepticism? Okay, he's asking questions, he's collecting evidence, he's presenting it for consideration. Any ideas? I think you know what I'm going to say. Yeah, Michael. Thank you. That's the kind of back and forth you all come here for. All right, no, absolutely not. Scott is a denialist. He's a conspiracy theorist. Okay? That means he denies things and he believes in conspiracies. He builds conspiracies. How can we tell a conspiracy theorist or a denialist? Well, they're going to look for anomalies, things that stick out. Okay, right? Here we have this nice line. Ignore it. Look at this. Okay? Fire has never brought down a steel girder building in the history of mankind. Jet fuel can't melt steel. Okay? He's looking for things that stick out and building this case off that, right? He looks for the Trump, the rock that looks like Trump, and instead of trying to find why a rock might look like something human, might look like a human face, he uses it to support his case. All right, he fills in the gap. Right? When an answer of I don't know is the honest answer, he has his own answers. Right? Why does this banana fit so well into my hand? God did it. That's rapes. Right? Or why does this rock look like a face? Why does a rock look like a face? I can't spell the word, I'm not going to. Let me draw you a picture. This is a dot. That's a dot. This is a line. What is it? No, it's two dots in a line. But our brains are very good at completing that picture. It's called pareidolia. It's how we build patterns. Okay? Our brain sees two dots and a line, and we think it's a face. I've asked Scott, I've messaged him and asked him, how do you rule out pareidolia? How do you know you're not just seeing it? No reply. He seems so communicative. He has a blanket denial of the media. Anything the media says that doesn't fit his story, it's not true. If it's from a government and doesn't acknowledge the existence of aliens, then it can't be real. If the scientific consensus goes one way and he wants to go another, he's willing to ignore it. And anything that looks like an official story, he denies. Well, it's not skepticism. It's just not skepticism. Lastly, an unwillingness to change one's mind. If you ever get into an argument with some conspiracy theorists, they'll never admit that they were wrong. And I'll talk later about how skeptics might disagree with that. All right, guys, this is a picture. This truly is an unidentified flying object. When we hear unidentified flying object, we usually think aliens, right? Well, guys, that's not what the word means. Unidentified flying object just means something that's flying that we don't know what it is. Okay? Over the years, the term has been taken over by people who believe in aliens. It really just means an unidentified flying object. We could even go one step further and say it's just a UO, an unidentified object. We might just even say it's unidentified. This could be a reflection on a piece of glass. It could not be flying. It could not be an object. Okay, but I'm going to tell you the lead here. It is a real flying object. And this is what Scott said about it. It's not a helicopter, and it is not a plane. It's not a drone, because it's too big. No drone can do that. This is a high probability of being a UFO. Okay? And why? Why are UFOs coming to London? Of course, he cannot help himself. London is a city that has preserved 100 years of architectural marvels. The aliens, they seem to be highly interested in learning about human history. Okay? Not just that they're here, but why? Why are they here? Yes, research. Yeah. Well, let me tell you guys. The person who took this picture knew it was not a UFO. The person who took the picture used what I think was maybe a camera phone or a snap and shoot. He waited outside of Heathrow Airport in London until a plane was coming in around dusk and got this picture. So this is a plane. This is a plane. We know it's a plane. The person who took the picture knew it was a plane. And he didn't tell Scott when he sent him that photo. He just sent it to him and said, "What do you think?" You might ask about the ethics of that, but that's what he did. And later he did admit. He said, "Scott," and he said it to a few other people. He said, "Scott, it's a plane. It's a plane. Here's the flight path. Here's the time. Here's where I was. It's a plane." So what would you do if you were honest? "Oh, I should have known that. Oh, I've been researching this for years. Why don't I know what a plane looks like coming in and out?" Mr. Warren has yet to respond. To take a diversion from this for a second. Have we learned anything? Did the Express, which printed this story, learn anything? Apparently not. Same newspaper, same journalist. NASA cover-up, space agency found city on Mars, but tried to stop you seeing it. Source? UFO Sightings Daily, Scott Waring. There's a lot of people who don't trust the media. This is maybe one thing you should know. The media is not lying to you. The media is under pressure to produce content. I would not be surprised if John Austin has to produce 3 or 4 or 5 stories every day. So he's bookmarked UFO Sightings Daily, and he knows, oh, I need a story. Okay, let's see what Scott's done today. Of course, he's in the weird category. Okay. The weird category drives traffic. It does not always promote journalistic integrity. All right, so then what is skepticism really? Okay, skepticism is critical thinking. It's where you don't accept any claim as true. You look into it, you try to prove it's false. And if you can't prove it's false, you accept it as true preliminarily. It's scientific inquiry. We use the tools of science and to some extent, history, philosophy, the other academic arts to investigate. And they've proven themselves reliable. The respect for evidence. Skeptics will believe anything. I will believe anything for evidence and a ham sandwich. All right? If you show me the evidence, I will believe. If Scott walked in the room with an alien, I would have to at least start to think about accepting that aliens came to Earth. I might think I was crazy. Might think that maybe Dennis had left some psychedelics here for me. But I mean, at least I would have to admit that I was seeing something. Okay? As a movement, skepticism is kind of a form of consumer protection. Now, this is where it'll start to tie in with humanism a little bit. We don't want people to waste time. We don't want people to waste money. We don't want people to be taken advantage of because they're not using the clearest thinking. So a skeptic works hard to expose frauds and scams and show where certain alternative medicine may not work so well. Lastly, willingness to change something. Like I need to have a willingness to change LibreOffice to something else. All right, willingness to change one's mind and admit when you're wrong, right? I enjoy finding out that I'm wrong. If you guys watch Matt Dillahunty, you know he says, I want to know as many true things and as few false things as possible. Every time I learn that I have something wrong, that I've gotten something wrong, that I've made a mistake, I'm now lighter of one fewer false belief, right? I now know fewer false things. I now know more right things. All right, so what does it look like? What is this? What does skepticism look like? Who knows what this is? What's that? It is food. Very good. Turkey, goose. It's in the goose family. Duck. 什么样的鸭？那个烤鸭？北京烤鸭。Okay, it's 北京烤鸭. Or as we say in the West, we say Peking duck. Peking duck. Okay? And if you're a weirdo like me and you have the conversations I do, you have a fight. Okay? Beijing, look at the word is spelled Beijing. And we see these two spellings, Beijing and Peking. Okay? Some of you may have seen a little bit of this on my blog before. Okay? So the question is, Beijing or Peking? And some people will even say, oh, yeah, well, you can spell it Peking, but this is a romanization system. So you're really supposed to say Beijing. Even though it's spelled Peking, you say Beijing. All right, so I looked into that. I wanted to say, is that true? Okay, I wanted to use critical thinking. I didn't accept it as true, so I wanted to research. The first culprit that people like to point you to is Wade Giles. I'm a big fan of anything with Wade in it. All right? The only civilian to die during Gettysburg, also named Wade. Okay? Not my favorite Wade though. So in Wade Giles, there's two ways to spell it. Or sorry, Beijing is spelled like this. Peicing. Ha ha ha. J'accuse. Actually, I don't j'accuse. I removed from the docket, right? Peicing is not Peking. So it can't be Wade Giles. So what system is it? Where do we get Peking from? So, well, Wade and Giles are both dumb white guys. Well, are they dumb? They were doing the best, you know. In fact, all right, so the Chinese postal romanization, yes, put together by a dumb white guy, okay? It is spelled Peking, okay? We get Peking from the Chinese postal romanization. And just, you know, when I'm doing this, when I'm researching this stuff, I get these little rushes. Wow, a Chinese postal romanization system. I didn't know that I didn't know that. You know? Who knew? Who knew that there was so many ways to write Chinese in English letters? Okay, but again, it's a romanization system. That means we're writing a foreign language into the Roman alphabet. And if you study Chinese, you 看拼音，汉语拼音。尤其罗马字代表一个发音。There's a few letters that represent sounds. They don't represent the actual pronunciation that we'd use in English. This is standard. So like Q in Hanyu pinyin is pronounced ch. Hanyu pinyin Q， 因为罗马的 Q 就是说法是 ch。全家是个 Q. So I had to look. Peking. Is it supposed to be Beijing? In the postal system, it could be K. J from Beijing could be K, or it could be TS. All right. So if it's K or if it's TS, it could be close, right? J, Z, similar, close enough. And K. So I had to look at how do you pronounce these letters. And it turns out the romanization system is based off a common average pronunciation. Okay, it's based off of Middle Chinese. That's maybe more information than you need to know. But in the older, a long time ago, words like Beijing sounded different. Okay, we can see. Have you ever thought about how do we track pronunciation over time in a pictorial language? Right? In English, we have some fossilized letters, like film used to be spelled film. It has an O in it. So we know that there's been a change in pronunciation. But how do you do that in Chinese? Right? How do you know that Jing now and Jing 2,000 years ago were pronounced the same?
Poetry.
Very good. Very good. We use rhyme charts. Right? Poetry is one other place that it would be preserved. But linguists would use these rhyme charts so that you could know, well, this Jing, this character Jing, this is not the character Jing, but for example, the character Jing used to rhyme with the character King. So you know that King, Jing has changed. All right. And as it turns out, that the language, that the Romanization, the postal Romanization system was one of these languages that used to be different. It used to be a hard K. We can still hear that today. What's the biggest city north of Taipei? Keelung. But is that what we like to say? Keelung. Right? Taiwanese would say Keelung. So that yeah, sorry. Yeah, so that JK, we still have it today. So, yeah, in the end I did find that Peking is Peking. All right. Good job, Wade. All right. You might say, Wade, it sounds like skepticism just leads you to boring answers. Ooh, thank you. Okay, yes, it sometimes does lead you to boring answers, but let me tell you something, guys. Boring answers matter. Hashtag, yeah. Okay? Because a boring answer is usually a nuanced answer. And I'm comparing that to certainty, right? What do you need to be certain? Almost nothing. You just need a conviction that you're right. There's no belief that you can't come to through certainty. You can believe anything if all you have is certainty, right? Nuance takes time, takes effort, it takes information. And is it worth it? You know, is it worth it to have nuance? Is it worth it to find these boring answers? Well, yes, because I've found these nuanced answers, and now I know that these things are safe. I know that these things shouldn't scare you, right? GMOs, we have over 20 years of research showing their safety. Radiation, watch out, the lights are on. You're being bathed with radiation. All right? Vaccination, the story that scared most people was false, all of it. It was a fake story, it was fraud. The first story that showed that vaccines cause autism. Chemicals are everywhere. Looks like Ian's having a nice glass of chemicals. Your bodies are intricate and beautiful machines that just process chemicals and are made of chemicals and produce chemicals in some magical ways. Okay, so, man, how would a boring answer help a humanist? How would a nuanced answer help a humanist? Anyone know this guy? The big D, all right, Duterte? Pete Diggy? I'm just not going to do that, sorry. Right, so he said, shoot him and I'll give you a medal. Shoot him and I'll give you a medal, talking about drug dealers. And since then, there have been hundreds, right? Hundreds of people shot. Okay, drug dealers, drug users, and just other, and I don't mean to minimize this, but collateral damage. Children, families who happen to be with suspected drug users or suspected drug dealers shot in the street. And man, these gunmen, they must be certain, right? They must know for sure that what they're doing is right, that they're not going to be punished, that a person who sells or uses drugs is a bad person who is hurting their society, and that shooting them is going to make the society better. That takes some certainty, right? Now, as a skeptic, I would stop and I would ask these questions. Why do people use drugs, right? Is it poverty? Is it a lack of opportunity? Is it a health issue, right? Is it a mental health issue? Because when we answer those questions, we can start to actually look at how we can get people to stop using drugs, right? Or if we're talking about drug dealers, people who sell drugs. But not everyone who sells drugs wants to sell drugs. Right? There are people who, through circumstance, are made to sell drugs. Right? There's people who don't have the opportunity, so selling drugs happens to be their best opportunity at hand. Right? And if you think those people are bad people, yeah, then you might shoot them. But man, you really got to be certain that they're bad people. Skepticism makes me think that they're not that bad. Skepticism and humanism has been described like this by your fellow Australian, Nick Morganmore. Have you ever heard him? Skepticism is how we view the world, and humanism is how we relate to the world. If our view of the world is skewed, if we believe that drug dealers are bad and hurting society, how are we going to relate to them? What are we going to be able to justify doing to them? However, if we use a tool like skepticism, which focuses on evidence and focuses on critical inquiry, that leads us to an evidence-based and reality-based view of the world, are we going to be better able to relate the solutions we come to address the problems in effective ways? Right? So the two play well together, but I think neither is enough. Okay. As a humanist, how do I know if acupuncture can help my friend with cancer? Right? Humanism is ethical, it's rational, but it does not have the tools necessarily to address this. And if I'm a skeptic, what do I tell my friend who has cancer, who's addressed all of his options and now is turning to acupuncture? What do I say to him? You know? The two help each other. They work together. Right here we have two circles. One circle is skepticism and one is humanism. I think where they come together is where we can be most effective. It's the part of both of these circles where our views are most in tune with reality, and therefore our solutions to them can be the most effective. And what I love about both of these circles is they both grow, right? There are so many things that as humanists in the world we have to deal with. Right now, transgender rights, right? 15 years ago, that was a non-issue. Now, the circle of humanism has gotten bigger. And skepticism has to deal with that too. You can listen to skeptic talk about transgender, the issue, the science. Right? So as the two grow, they can help each other. So let me leave you with this. This guy's named Captain Disillusion. He's got a YouTube channel. Very good. Very interesting. And he says this way. He says this. I'm going to borrow his advice and hand it to you. So as humanists, let us love with our hearts. But as skeptics, let's use our minds for everything else. Thank you. All right, any questions? Can someone run the microphone?
As a skeptic, have you considered the option that Scott Waring is married with kids and he's just bored?
I'm sorry, what?
Scott Waring, you said he's married with kids.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he's just bored.
You know, I think when I got onto his website, and I started finding all these pictures tagged with Angelina Jolie and Justin Bieber, and then you had the occasional story about Lady Gaga, that maybe he's at least in part driven by a need for attention. But yeah, I'm not a mind reader. I don't like to assign people motives if I can avoid it. I just try to address what they present.
You consider the possibility that UFO guy might have been a satirist and he's doing that just for the kicks?
Could he be a satirist? it's definitely possible. You know, I think he does try to keep his stuff really topical, right? Donald Trump, I don't think he put that up 5 years ago. Could he be a satirist? Yeah, he could be. But again, I can't, you know, short of an actual admission, right? Like you go to the Onion, it says this is for satire purposes. This is a joke. I can't assign that to him. I can't say, oh, this is satire and not deal with it, because you know he's dealing with it, at least presenting it seriously.
Like the Flying Spaghetti Monster.
Flying Spaghetti Monster religion presents itself seriously. It does present itself seriously, you're right. And I think there is a distinction in the seriousness that I can't quite put to words right now. Right? I think we know from the history of FSM, Pastafarianism, that it wasn't, you know, intentionally started as a mock religion.
If I may, the Flying Spaghetti Monster came about as a response to the Kansas Board of Education's teaching of creationism. So it was, while it was satire, it came about as a legitimate, well, you want to teach the creation story, so why aren't you teaching about the Flying Spaghetti Monster? So it was born out of a serious issue that then took on a life of its own.
And what's interesting though is that UFO guys tend to be really interested in security and public, national security. So they're very concerned about stuff like that. You know, I was going to other UFO sites, and they're like, "Oh, Scott Warren, UFO sightings daily. It's a hoax, it's a scam. Don't believe it. But here are the real aliens. Check them out." Right? Yeah. So I think we have to deal with people how they present themselves. Right? I don't want to tell anyone what they should call themselves. I don't want to tell anyone how they define themselves. But I'm willing to address people as they come to me. Michael and Michael.
I don't have any questions. I really enjoyed that, and I've done research into pareidolia and all that kind of area, and I just wanted to add to your talk because it was very good. There is a lecture series by Yale professor Stephen Novella called Your Deceptive Mind, A Scientific Guide to Critical Thinking, and I highly recommend you find that series. It is brilliant. He runs through pareidolia, false memories, logic and logical fallacies, everything to do with critical thinking and scientific skepticism. He covers it all. He attacks creationism brilliantly, yet politely. So I highly recommend that. It is expensive if you buy it, and I wouldn't recommend you go look for a pirated copy anywhere, but they do exist, I've been told. But yeah, so I highly recommend that series. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and just put Stephen Novella, if you know Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, he's one of the hosts.
Oh, is it? I didn't know that. But yeah, I'm familiar with him from this lecture series.
Yeah.
So I posted it on my Facebook page if you want to get it.
Yeah, and if I may, just I did actually have a quote, I didn't include it, from him that I sort of inspired me a little bit. The low energy cognitive process of doing what feels right is easily manipulated and often leads us astray. In fact, I would argue that the rising mission of SBM, skepticism, can be summarized as replacing such low energy cognitive processes with progressively higher energy cognitive processes, such as critical evidence-based analysis. This, however, can be a lot of work and may rub up against our feelings, and there's often a great deal of resistance. So kind of like what I was saying before, fear leads you to your baser, less, your fight and flight mode, you react, you don't think.
Isn't that what Stephen Colbert calls truth is?
Sort of, right? You're willing to accept facts because, facts because they make you feel good in light of your beliefs.
How do you think? Quite an actual crazy question. Do you think skepticism is under particular threat in this modern world of online? I mean, you showed some of it there with the Daily Express. There's a clickbait online, desperate scramble and competition in the media, 24-hour news media, Twitter, 140 characters and no thoughts, Facebook posts, no attention span, all of this sort of stuff that is getting worse and worse. It's completely contradictory to skepticism. Is there a big problem there, and how would you solve that?
Yeah, we've been described as we're living in a post-fact society. You know, I think, and this is sort of a little bit of speculation, is that part of the problem is the business model. Is that, you know, if you guys were alive in the 90s and you went to a blog, and you'd always see AdSense by Google. Okay? And Google placed hundreds of ads all over the internet. That became the business model. So if you wanted to make money, you needed to drive clicks to your website because you need people to see the banners and click on them and visit the sites. So this has sort of led this arms race about, you know, I wrote a blog and you can't imagine what happened next. You won't believe what I wrote in this blog. Okay? Because we need people to click, and it's not as important to get things right because by that time, people are already gone. They've already gone. So, yeah, I think it is getting harder to keep up. They say that a hoax gets halfway around the world before the truth even gets its pants on, right? And then there are more hoaxes setting off every day.
It's particularly wrong because those sorts of blogs and websites we're talking about, we might consider places that we already be skeptical about going to bigger news companies have the same.
Bigger news companies have the same pressure to get clicks these days because the funding for news has gone into the toilet. And so we're seeing the same trend in what used to be and should be trustworthy sources.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger threat than maybe Twitter and these kind of blogs.
It is a problem. Where do we go then? What are our sources? I think, you know, crowd sources, things like Wikipedia, collaborative efforts actually do tend to lead us to the truth, and people these days actually are generally better informed, right? Because we all have devices in our pockets that lead us to where we need, and hopefully can lead us to good information. But yeah, we're going to have to start teaching things like this to let people know what is a good source, what's a bad source. It used to be, you know, you could say BBC, New York Times, those were respected and always had good information. Now, unfortunately, maybe the web versions are not that place anymore. We're going to have to say, well, you're going to have to go buy a newspaper. That's where you get the good stuff. Anyone else? All right then, let's give me a round of applause.